have a couple of videos that I want to watch today. Number one is from Ebonheart. This video is titled Welcome to Modern Classic World of Warcraft. I have no idea what this is going to be about. I mean, based on the title we do, but I haven't seen anything about this video, but it popped up in my feed, and we've been watching quite a few of Ebonheart's videos in the past. He makes really banging content, and I love just his speculation about what's happening with World of Warcraft in the future as well. I've been tuning into quite a few of his streams, and the man is talking so much about Phase 4 and the way, like, where things can go from here, basically. It's really fun to watch and really fun to speculate. Either way, let's take a look at this video right here. So I'm going to put this in full screen, make sure it's not muted or anything. There we go. Alright.
Is Modern Classic the same as Classic was back in 2019? When Classic WoW launched, it changed the gaming landscape in a way that probably won't be changed again until GTA 6. Yet Classic WoW started a divide in the player base, retail versus Classic, and as of this moment, almost 6-year-long argument on which version of the game is better. That question is subjective, but the bigger question of the recent years has become, what is Classic?
Oh.
Everyone draws that line separately. Some people draw in a more harsh line and others are more fluid. When I interviewed the developers of the Classic dev team recently, they said that the definition of Classic is fluid and everyone has a separate endpoint in what that is. And the community and forums...
Yeah, I mean, we're already seeing that happen right now, because for some people, Classic ended when Arthas was defeated in ICC. Like in my old guild, and they didn't even want to farm. They got a couple of Arthas kills for the achievements for everyone in the guild, and then they hard quit. They were just like, okay, our mission is done, Classic is over, time to go somewhere else, or time to move on. Meanwhile, some of us, we are out here playing Cataclysm, and we consider that to be Classic. And then we have a bunch of people that don't consider Cataclysm to be Classic at all, and they are very vocal about that. They will let you know that Cataclysm is not Classic. It's a split community, it's a split, like, some people think it's Classic, some people don't. We're seeing it happen right now.
Agree, but that leads us to the biggest problem of all, Modern Classic and what it is. At its launch, Classic WoW was meant to be a nostalgic and iconic retelling of a story that started back in 2004 and of a version of the game very few people played and got to actually experience. It essentially doubled the sub numbers of WoW, showing the then Blizzard that they were wrong. You think you do, but you don't is a meme that's been beaten.
You think you do, but you don't. But we actually did, and we are here, and we're playing. we did, and we do. It's the biggest meme of all time, dude. And it's still crazy to me they actually had the balls to say that in a press conference or like at BlizzCon. To say that to your community, just be like, you think you do, but trust me, you don't. And here we are. I guess we did.
To death, but it still holds true. Millions of people flocked back to play Classic WoW, and it was amazing how things progressed from there. The stories, the memories, the large number of boomers who relapsed after quitting back in OG Cataclysm, and by the end of Classic, when Nax was on farm, GDKPs were spread across the board, we opened the portal to step into Outland once again. And TBC, despite being one of the better expansions, was full of whining, with people loudly saying, I can't wait for this to end to play Wrath of the Lich King, or TBC is mid, and other terrible takes. And don't get me wrong, people enjoyed the shit out of TBC Classic, but people wanted to rush through to Wrath of the Lich King. And then it happened. We got to Wrath Classic, which was hype beyond measure, and everyone and their mother came back.
You know, looking back at it now, I really wish I played TBC more and did more variety of things in TBC. I just wish I experienced TBC more. And I would love to have a fresh Classic WoW at some point, maybe even this year, maybe next year, but just a fresh Classic WoW going through Vanilla and TBC again. And I'm one of those who thinks we really should have a TBC era. It's really weird to me how we have Classic era, and we don't have TBC era, and we also don't have Wrath era anymore. Like, we should have a way to play TBC and Wrath without going to private servers. That's my take.
back to try it. But this time around, Naxxramas, despite being a recent raid, wasn't as fun, because far too many people remembered clearing Naxxramas just under 2 years ago. And as after the Lich King went on, the player base kept dropping. Ulduar and then ICC chipping away at it. Then Season of Discovery happened, and that chipped away even further at the player numbers. Despite Wrath of the Lich King supposedly being the crown jewel of the OG Classic trilogy, by the end of Wrath of the Lich King Classic, it was down to a fraction of the player base. From Naxxramas' peak of 630,000 active raiders, all the way down to 80k. A drop-off was expected, being the end of the expansion, but nobody expected a drop-off as severe as this. Okay, that's a lie, everyone did. People specifically said that if Ulduar and ICC lasted this long, people would quit. And then Blizzard let it last that long, so people quit. Which then brings us to where we are right now, just after the launch of Cataclysm Classic, which has garnered a supposedly large population. But for how long? Because what is Classic, or in this case, what is Modern Classic meant to be? Some people have started to call it Classic Progression, a version of the game where people get to live through all the expansions all over again, allowing them to experience what the games were like, or at least something similar to the original launch experience. Cataclysm not...
I think that's the way to go, at least to a certain point. I really don't want us to ever go into BFA Classic or Shadowlands Classic, because to me that's just really far-fetched. But then again, maybe in 10 years we'll be like, remember how good BFA was? And fool ourselves into thinking that, and by the time BFA Classic becomes a thing, people actually want to play it somehow. But to me, we're in Cata now. Mist of Pandaria is basically confirmed, which means that's happening next, at which point we're only one commonly thought of as a bad expansion, aka Warlords, away from Legion, which was a super hype expansion, by the way. So considering we are in Cata now, we're going to MOP, I think we should go to at least Legion, because we're only one technically bad expansion away, and then we're there. I would love to re-experience Legion in a classic style.
Not so much, because where did the pre-patch go? I could have swore that there was a pre-patch. Anywho, I'm not here to debate whether or not Cataclysm is quotation marks classic, because that's a personal discussion. This video is solely about the fact of Modern Classic and what its long-term goals are and how will the player base react to it. Because if the sole goal is to be a continual re-release, aka Classic Progression, are we all prepared for Shadowlands Classic in 10 years, especially with the accelerated phases? And is this...
Pashers asks, how do you play Blood DK? You put Blood Boil and Death Strike on all your action bars. You then put out you use Outbreak on a mob to get damage over times. You then use Pestilence to spread damage over times. And then, like we just talked about, have Blood Boil and Death Strike on all your bars. I'm talking like, make all your bars into those two spells. And then just head bash your keyboard. Just roll your head on the keyboard and you press buttons and somehow it works, and you're going to be top DPS. A Rune Strike as well is pretty good to have there, true, yeah. It's either that, or you can actually use a cast sequence one-shot macro, or like a one-button macro with a cast sequence to use all of those things.
What the player base wants. I know certain people want certain expansions, for example Legion, and I won't deny that certain elements of certain expansions are amazing, but is this a sustainable game model for Classic as a whole? And is Modern Classic even meant to be a high investment game mode? Or is it meant to be a game where that's available so that people have access to another version of the game to play alongside retail WoW, alongside seasonal WoW like Thunderstorm and WoW Remix, and then the Classic era and its myriad upcoming seasons? Because to me, Modern Classic seems like a new way of gaming. It's a way to play Classic where everyone gets to play Classic the way they want to play Classic. And with Blizzard and Microsoft's new goal being as many players with as many game modes as possible, it's honestly not a bad strategy at all. Because a lot of people quit during OG Cataclysm, and it was touted as being the expansion that started the fall of WoW. But so far, it's not that bad. It's a fun game, it's a decent expansion. I'm sure it'll do well and keep a healthy player base at least for some time. Heck,
if Ebonheart says that Cataclysm is good, or that it's okay, and he says that he's sure it's gonna do well, it's gonna do well. Yeah, it's gonna do well. Cataclysm is a hype then, dude. Yeah, if even Ebonheart is on the Cataclysm train, we did it, boys. We did it.
A Classic, the expansion that's not confirmed but is essentially confirmed, will almost definitely have more players than Cataclysm Classic. I'm sure there's a portion of the player base that's just waiting for MoP Classic at the moment, and MoP will definitely be fun as it's
you know, I'm actually going to be a little bit of a doomer here and say that Mr. Pandaria will probably not have as many people as Cataclysm, or at least not more, because while there are some people waiting for Mr. Pandaria and skipping Cataclysm for Mr. Pandaria, there's also going to be people quitting. That will just be like, okay, you know what, I'm done, and I'm just going to skip MoP, and I'll be done with Classic for now. We're gonna see those people. Same thing happened in Wrath as well. Like, we lost people along the way who wanted to play Wrath, and they quit in Ulduar. Like, I had some guildies that were so hyped for Wrath, and they quit in Ulduar. I had real-life friends. I have a real-life friends who also were super hyped for Wrath Classic. They also quit in Ulduar, and did not come back again. Because once they quit, they just didn't have the reason to come back, nor the will to come back either. But I will say, there's a lot of hype behind Mr. Pandaria in general, but I just think a lot of people might just straight out quit before we get to that point, and not come back. But you also have the people that are waiting for MoP right now that are not playing Cataclysm. So overall, Mr. Pandaria will probably be just as hype as Cataclysm, maybe slightly less, but I mean, time will tell, time will tell.
PvP is considered to be the best, if not one of the best versions of PvP in WoW, so Blizzard continuing to release all of these expansions back to back fills in a niche and gap that retail and Classic itself was lacking. A new experience and a way to get Classic player base as a whole to interact with the retail ecosystem. Especially as retail WoW continues to become a better game, more and more people will be interested in trying it out. And this isn't some grand conspiracy. Blizzard isn't making modern Classic so you eventually quit and play retail. They're making it so they have more MAUs. If by chance you dive into...
I don't know, dude, because after the incursions, I have this theory that they're trying to get you to play retail to get you to spend more cash. Because you have a bigger cash shop. This is from Season of Discovery, by the way. Because in Season of Discovery, the only thing they can charge you by is your monthly sub. Meanwhile, in retail, we have store mounts, we have transmog, we have bundles that gives you more transmogs, they give you trading tenders, we have the trading station, we have WoW tokens. This is just, we have battle pets, we have transmog items. I'd probably cover it all now, but there's so many more things that they can milk cash from, and they have said themselves that a lot of their income comes from those microtransactions. And my point with this was that they had incursions in SOD Phase 3 where they called them Nightmare Incursions, which was set in the Emerald Nightmare. What is the current patch in retail and what is the current daily hub in retail? It's the Emerald Nightmare. They're using the same assets and trying to get you to do dailies in the Emerald Nightmare, which is what we're doing in retail. Dailies in the Emerald Nightmare. It's all about the Emerald Nightmare. Coincidence? I think not. But hey, conspiracy.
The retail ecosystem, that's just a double whammy. It keeps you invested into the World of Warcraft ecosystem. Boredom is a thing of the past when you can just jump back and forth for one singular subscription. And retail and Classic are becoming closer and closer. Cataclysm Classic and each new expansion afterwards in the Classic progression system will keep getting closer to retail. And Season of Discovery is, as much as some people are loath to admit it, retail light. Very light and more Classic than retail, but it's still a touch of retail. At the same time,
I am very happy he said this because it really feels that way. It feels like instead of Season of Discovery being Classic Plus-ish, it's Classic mixed with retail. Which isn't a bad thing, it's just not what I was hoping for. They've put in too many retail elements, for my liking at least, to where it stopped being the season I was hoping for. It's just too much retail. And every phase they've put in more and more retail, especially with Phase 3, putting in incursions, and being proud of incursions themselves, where they're like, oh, we love incursions, and we're so glad you're having fun. It's a way to rush your character to max level, invalidating the old world, and invalidating the effort of which you put in to level up your character, which is a couple of the core foundations upon which Classic WoW is built. The world itself, the quests, the meaningful time put into your character. There's a couple of core foundations of Classic there, which was really destroyed with the incursions, and it's a massive retail element, not to speak of the class design, and like the abilities you have access to. It's so much retail, but the incursions by themselves really pissed me off. Because for me, and for a lot of people, I know that Classic, the big difference between Classic, there's many of them, but like some of the big differences is the connection you get to your character by investing that much time into your character and by traveling all across the world, seeing the world itself, and leveling. Leveling takes time and takes you across the world, takes you across multiple zones. Meanwhile, Phase 3 Incursions came out, you literally did the same 7 quests on repeat for 10 levels. Great game design. Yeah, just run circles that took, how long was it? 6 minutes per circle? So you ran that circle 6 minutes per circle, let's say you did it 20 times per level, you did the same circle 200 times. Woo! Ah, gameplay!
Time though. Blizzard seems to have realized that you cannot satisfy every player base, even if the player base shoves themselves into a game mode not designed for them and then complains. For example, we have Season of Discovery, Cataclysm Classic, Classic Era, and Hardcore. 4 similar game modes but different player bases for the most part. All of that is Classic, yet every Classic player plays the game differently. And tying to that very same notion, does the player base even know what it wants? Because one of the most popular things you can say is ban GDKP. It's bad for the game. But at the very same time, the most popular game mode is GDKPs, and it's easy to make it make sense. People no longer play slowly, so everything has to have some value to them. It's very similar to how Chinese players play. Even if I don't win any loot, I get gold out of this, and that's at least worth my time. Now, I'm not going to deep dive that today because the GDKP question is a video all in of itself, but it shows that the very concept of Classic and what it was back in the day and the version we have today is drastically different. Vanilla players when compared to Classic players when compared to modern Classic players are essentially 3 different groups of people. The disparity between how each group of player played Classic has changed, and rather rapidly at that. And thus, we have where we are right now, a divided player base, which is honestly the only good solution that Blizzard has been able to come up with. Instead of catering to one group of people, they are creating so many different ways to play that everyone has a way to play the game that they want to play. Some retail players will play Classic, enjoy it, and then try one of the many Classic game modes, and vice versa. A Classic player will try WoW Remix or Plunderstorm and realize, hey, I actually like this, and then try out retail. Because Blizzard has realized that in this modern day and age where every game is a live service with a battle pass, microtransactions, and more, everyone is competing for your $20 to $30 a month. So most people are locked to one ecosystem till they get burnt out and jump to another game. And thus, modern Classic, where you don't get burnt out. You get sick of one game mode, so you just jump to another and play that. Because even when they make Classic Plus, and they will eventually, whether or not you and I consider this eventual game mode to be Classic Plus is irrelevant. It'll get made and it'll just be another game mode, however big that is, that locks you further and further into the World of Warcraft ecosystem. Because Microsoft's MBAs could not give a singular shit if you play retail, hardcore, classic, or what else. They're looking at MAUs and they're repeating Game Pass or the Blizzard. Why would you play a different service if everything you're looking for is on one singular subscription? So this is not just modern Classic, but it's a modern World of Warcraft, and honestly, it's a pretty goddamn bright future as a World of Warcraft player. I know some Classic players might hate this idea in future, because in their mind, their favorite version of the game isn't getting the time or attention they think it deserves. But for World of Warcraft's long-term health and survival, I think Blizzard has made a very smart choice. If you like this video, subscribe. If you hated every second of it, subscribe and hate my next video. Check out my Twitch. I use a whiteboard and go on massive conspiracy theories. Thank you, Ebonhard out.
Good video, dude. Yeah, once again, I've been checking out the streams and he has been going, the whiteboard streams are great, man. The whiteboard streams are great. But also I was gonna say, it is indeed a very good time to be a World of Warcraft player, with retail being improved, with Classic being, well, Classic. So we have Classic Era now, if you just want to play regular Classic, right? We even have the Fresh movement, which I'm going to talk about in a bit, by the way, Marius. But yeah, we have the Fresh movement on Classic Era as well, which is great to see. So we have regular Classic, or Vanilla Classic, whatever you want to say, on Classic Era. we have Cataclysm, we have Season of Discovery, we have future seasons. There's so much gameplay. We even have Mist of Pandaria remix in retail, which if retail isn't your thing, if Classic isn't your thing, if Season of Discovery isn't your thing, Classic Era isn't your thing, that could be your thing, Mist of Pandaria remix. I'm really enjoying remix at the moment. For me, for example, playing a couple of hours every single day, it's been really fun. It's just been very fun and very different, and you become so overpowered. It's really fun to try out, so if you haven't tried it out, take it from me, a classic WoW Andy. It's really fun. Well, it can be fun. It might not be for you, but then again, we have like 6 different versions of WoW now. There's definitely going to be something for you out there, and it's a great time to be a WoW gamer. I just want to point out that the TBC enjoyers got nothing. Yep, I really wish we had a TBC era server or a fresh TBC server, and a Wrath era server as well. Right now, there's no way to play TBC or Wrath on an official Blizzard server, which feels really weird, by the way. Feels really weird and bad. And I can't help but think they must have a plan about this. There must be a reason why we didn't get TBC era or Wrath era. There must be something behind this. And for the fresh classic movement on Deviate the Light, or what's the EU server? This one on EU as well, right? Hydraction, right? Hydraction Waterlords, maybe? For those, I might give it a try, see what's happening on the fresh era movement. I'm not going to play it a lot, I think. I might though, because I love classics. I can't really say, but no plans. And if I do, it's just going to be to have fun. But I do love the fresh movement, and I do love classic. At the moment, I'm having so much fun though in every other version of WoW that I don't really have the time. But I would love to give it a try. Maybe I'll make a lower level character and just hang out to have fun. Could be fun. But good video, Ebonart, good video.